everybody. Now we're getting ready to do the digestive system. So the digestive system is really straightforward out of the systems that we've done. I think you'll find it to be a little bit of a welcome respite after doing the kidneys. Really what we're talking about, the whole point of the digestive system is for you to ingest food, which would go in through your mouth. You chew it, and chewing is called mastication. And you're chewing it to make it into sort of a bullet-shaped blob called a bolus that forms at the back of your throat that is easy to swallow. And the word for swallowing is deglutition. So you deglute the bolus, and it goes down your esophagus, and it lands in your stomach. It's going to sit in your stomach, whatever you've eaten, for a few hours, usually somewhere around 4 hours. Could be a little shorter, could be longer, depending on what it is that you've eaten, the size, how much fiber, protein, versus whether it's just a simple carbohydrate or whatever. But once it hits the stomach, a bunch of different things are going to happen. One, that food starts pressing on the walls of the stomach, and we'll see some reflexes happening there that cause some churning or contraction of the smooth muscle there that causes mixing of what is now called chyme. And we change the name from bolus, which is the blob of food really, to chyme because in the stomach we have different glands that are secreting various enzymes, acids, into the stomach to mix with that bolus to form this chyme, and this chyme is very, very acidic with a pH of 1 or 2, so very, very acidic. Now also the parasympathetic system helps to stimulate digestion, so you think of food up here, or you see or smell food, and that activates your parasympathetic system, which also helps to activate the mixing and the secretion that's occurring in the stomach. And that will be going on for, like I said, a couple of hours, maybe 4 hours or so. Then at that point, you've got this just nice mix of chyme. We haven't really broken down too many of the nutrients yet. Maybe a little bit of the carbohydrates. We'll see the carbohydrates have begun to break down a little bit. The proteins have just begun their process of breaking down, which is called denaturing of protein. So we still have the nutrients pretty intact as they pass out of the stomach and into the first section of the small intestine, which is called the duodenum. Now in the duodenum we're going to find a bunch of digestive enzymes coming in from the pancreas, which I forgot to draw the pancreas. Oh no, I didn't. There it is. It's right there. It's just not very good pancreas. The pancreas is kind of tucked behind your stomach, and it starts over on your left and goes over towards the right where your duodenum is. And there'll be a tube, the pancreatic duct, which you would have seen in lab, carrying pancreatic juice into the duodenum. And that's where you're going to find a bunch of digestive enzymes that are going to break each nutrient, your carbohydrates, your lipids, your proteins, down into their component pieces that are small enough to go into the cells that line the duodenum. So let's just pretend that's a very simple drawing of those intestinal epithelial cells. And we need to be able to get the nutrients into the cell and then out of the cell. So they have to be really, really small. You can't digest an entire protein like that. You need to break it down into, say, amino acids, or you can digest an entire complex carbohydrate. You need to break it down into the simple monosaccharides, the simple sugars that can be pulled into these cells and then out the other side into either the blood, or capillaries that are out here, or into lacteals, which are lymphatic vessels, and we'll see what the final destination is in the next few minutes. Now, a lot of the absorption isn't really going to be happening in the duodenum. Mostly this is going to be a lot of breakdown. We'll also have a lot of cells in the duodenum that are stimulating release of pancreatic juice from the pancreas. They'll also be going up to the liver, in particular the gallbladder, which stores bile in order to cause release of bile so that we can have bile come into the duodenum through the same little place that the pancreatic juice comes in to the duodenum. And that bile will help you to absorb fats. We'll see how in a couple minutes. We also have cells here that will be inhibiting stomach activity because you're done with the stomach. The chyme is passed out of the stomach and into the duodenum. So we're having stimulation of the pancreas, we're having stimulation of the gallbladder, we're having inhibition of the stomach, all because of cells in the duodenum called enteroendocrine cells that are essentially coordinating this step of digestion. But where we're going to have the most absorption is after the chyme passes through the duodenum. We get a lot of absorption in the next section of the small intestine, which is called the jejunum. So the jejunum is going to have a lot of surface area so that you can have the best maximized absorption of all the nutrients that you broke down in the duodenum. So when you look at the jejunum in like a cross section, so if you're looking at the tube that way, it's going to look very convoluted to increase surface area. There's a lot of extensions, those would be called the villi, and even smaller extensions, little hairs, which are the microvilli. Oops, can't see what I'm doing. The little microvilli would be sticking out here, forming what's called the brush border, which we'll see in a minute. All of this is increasing surface area so that you can have more absorption. It's going to be happening a lot in the jejunum. Now the last part of the small intestine is called the ileum. In the ileum you start to kind of smooth out, not quite so much in the way of these convolutions. These little folds here are called circular folds or plici. So lots and lots of plici in the jejunum, not so much in the ileum because you've really absorbed most of the nutrients that you're going to in the jejunum. The ileum is more concerned than with passing the chyme along into the large intestine, which is also called the colon. Also protecting the rest of the small intestine from bacteria that live in the large intestine, or that might be invading the large intestine. So you have some bacteria that are just existing naturally, your natural gut flora, and you want those there. Those help you with digestion. They help maintain your overall gut health. But you can also, because there's an opening at the end here to the rectum, you can also have bad bacteria coming in through your rectum, which would then invade into the rest of the large intestine. So you wouldn't want that. That's obviously not good. So you really don't want it going up into the small intestine either. So the ileum is going to have some lymphatic tissue called Peyer's patches that helps prevent that bacteria from going into the small intestine. Now back to the gut flora, because I can't leave gut flora alone without going on a massive tangent here about gut flora. There are good gut flora and there are bad gut flora. You essentially are cultivating your gut flora biome in here, and it can either help you or hinder you. So what you eat is what feeds that gut flora. And if you eat healthy foods, fibers, things called prebiotics and probiotics, which I'm sure everybody's heard of probiotics. These things help to enhance your gut flora, what we would call the good gut flora, that help to prevent things like colon cancer, diverticulitis, which is an inflammation of these like pouches that you have in your large intestines that can cause bleeding from there, which obviously is not good. Irritable bowel syndrome, all these sorts of things are caused by an imbalanced gut flora, or they can be exacerbated or made worse by imbalance of gut flora. Now, so you want these good gut flora, these good gut bacteria that help to prevent those things and help protect you from those things, or minimize them if you already have them. Now, you also have what you could think of as bad gut flora that is fed by eating simple sugar. So sugar in itself is pretty bad for you, but it's especially bad when you think of your gut flora, because these simple sugars just go right to the gut flora, feed the bad ones, and they proliferate and they crowd out the good ones, which can cause all kinds of health problems in your large intestine, especially as time goes on, as you get older. And actually, these bad gut flora, they actually send chemical messages up to your brain, to your limbic system in your brain, that regulates your emotions and your feelings and things like that. And they tell your brain that you want sugar. So often if you're feeling a craving for sugar, like you say, you're like, oh, I want a chocolate cake really bad. It's not really you that wants a chocolate cake. It's the gut flora that has sent this chemical message up to your brain that says, give me sugar. And you think, okay, I'll give you sugar. Like, it's kind of creepy, right, when you think of it that way. So you can start the bad gut flora out by limiting sugar, which is sort of difficult to do if you eat any kind of processed food, because read the label on any processed food and you're going to see a lot of sugar in it. And now you know that sugar is controlling your brain, so you want to limit that. The less sugar you eat, obviously, the better chance you're going to have of having good gut flora versus bad gut flora. Okay, so that is enough of a tangent about gut flora. I'll pause the video and we'll start a new video where we'll talk about the reflexes that cause mixing and things like that in the stomach, and then these enteroendocrine cells and also the glands in the stomach.